Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whoever you're joining me. And today's edition of the Daf Yomi, Daf 12, Arakhin um, Daf 12. We're going to dive straight in. A diamond was raised before the sages with regard to libations that are bought by themselves without an annual offering. Do they require song on the part of the Levites as the libations that are poured on the altar, or do they not require song? The Mark explains the side of the dilemma. Should it be assumed that since Shmuel bar Mani says, the Rabbi Yochanan says, from where is it derived that one recites a song of praise in the temple only over wine? It can be inferred that we recite songs wherever wine is poured on the altar, or perhaps we recite songs only upon eating and drinking on the altar. When both an animal offering is burned and the libation is also poured upon the altar, but upon the drinking of the altar alone, we do not recite songs. The Gemara seeks to resolve the dilemma to abide to cited earlier. Common here, Rabbi Yossi says that a fortunate matter is brought about on an auspicious day, and the deleterious matter on an inauspicious day, e.g. the night of Av, on which several tragedies have already occurred. As the sages said, when the temple was destroyed for the first time, that day was the night of Av, and it was the conclusion of Shabbat, and it was the year after the sabbatical year, and it was the week of the priestly watch of Jehoram. And the priests and Levites were standing on the platform and singing the verse. And he brought upon them their own iniquity, and he will cut them off in their own evil. Psalm 94:23. The Gemara analyzed the Brisa. This song, what was its purpose? If we say that it accompanied an obligatory burnt offering, was there any obligatory communal burnt offering sacrifice at that time? The daily offering had ceased to be brought on the 17th of Tammuz, 2 weeks before the night of Av. Rather, it would seem that this song accompanied a voluntary burnt offering. The Gemara asks, but didn't Rav Mari, son of Rav Kahana, teach that a voluntary burnt offering does not require song? Rather, it is not the case that the song accompanied libations brought without an animal offering. This would prove that the Levites sing when a wine libation is brought, even without an animal offering. Rav said, and some say it was Rav Ashi said, and can you understand that this song was recited over any offering? The song of the day for Sunday, which is when the Bible says that the temple was destroyed, is a psalm beginning with the verse of Psalm of David, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, in Psalm 24:1. And yet the verse that the Bible says that the Levites were singing, and he brought upon them their own iniquity, is a song for Wednesday, not a song for Sunday. Well, it was merely a portentous lamentation that came to their mouths. Not a song was cited over an offering, consequently no proof can be offered from this Brisa. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in the Brisa that the Levites were standing on a platform near the altar, which is the place where they sang to accompany offerings? The Gemara answers, this can be explained in according to the opinion of Reish Lakish. As Reish Lakish says, the Levites are permitted to recite a song on the platform even when it is not for an offering. The Gemara asks, if so, let them also recite a song for libations that are brought without an animal offering, even if that is not required. The Gemara answers, this could result in a mishap. What's a mishap? Nefeit minei chuva. Some explain that the concern is that if people would become accustomed to the Levites reciting a song with every libation, they might refrain from offering wine libations that are bought on their own if no song was going to be recited. And that's from Rabbeinu Gershom Mohagola. And the Levites might assume that just as singing for libations which are bought without an animal offering is optional, so too singing for libations that accompany an animal offering is also optional. The Gemara discusses the matter itself cited in the Brisa. Rabbi Yossi says a fortunate matter is brought about on an auspicious day, and the deleterious matter on an inauspicious day. As the sages said, when the temple was destroyed for the first time, that day was the night of Ab, and it was the conclusion of Shabbat, and it was the year after the sabbatical year. The Gemara asks, can you find the possibility that when the temple was destroyed for the first time, it was in the year after the sabbatical year? But isn't it written in a verse that Ezekiel experienced a prophecy in the 25th year of our captivity, at the beginning of the year on the 10th of the month, in the 14th year after the city was smitten, Ezekiel 40:1, which is the year when the beginning of the year is on the 10th of the month? You must say that it's referring to the Jubilee, which begins on Yom Kippur, the 10th of Tishrei. But if it enters your mind to say that the temple was destroyed in the first year of the sabbatical cycle, it is impossible that the Jubilee which follows the sabbatical year occurred on the 14th year after the destruction of the temple, counting from the first year of the sabbatical cycle. The first year of the sabbatical cycle, one arrived at year 8. If one continues to count to the first year of yet another sabbatical cycle, it is the 50th year after the year of the destruction of the temple, not the 14th year. The Gemara answers, Ravina said, the meaning of the verse is that it was in the 14th year after the year that the city was smitten. The year of the destruction is not counted as year one of the 14 years, rather year one was the following year. The destruction took place in the 36th year of the Jubilee cycle, and therefore the Jubilee occurred 14 years later. The Gemara objects, if so, when the verse states that Ezekiel's prophecy 14 years after the destruction of the temple was in the 25th year of the capacity, that is not precise. It was actually the 26th year of captivity. As the Master says in the Braita, the Jews were exiled first in Nebuchadnezzar's 7th year, and they were also exiled in Nebuchadnezzar's 8th year. It is related in 2 Kings that in the 8th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, he exiled King Joachim from Jerusalem along with many other prominent residents of the city, including the prophet Ezekiel. Yet, in Jeremiah 52:28, it is stated that an exile occurred in the 77th year. Additionally, it is stated in 2 Kings 25:8-11, Jeremiah 52:12-15, that the destruction of the temple and the exile of additional residents of Jerusalem occurred in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, and it's also related that an exile took place in the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. And that's from Jeremiah 52:29. The first exile took place during Nebuchadnezzar's 8th year, counting from the beginning of his reign. It was Nebuchadnezzar's 7th year, counting from the year he subjugated Joachim, king of Judah. The Bible continues. They were then exiled the second time in Nebuchadnezzar's 18th year, and they were exiled in Nebuchadnezzar's 19th year when the temple was destroyed. This statement will be explained later. The Gemara explains the objection. Now from the 7th year, when the first exile occurred, until the 18th year, when the second exile occurred in conjunction with the temple destruction, it's 11 years, not counting the year of destruction, and an additional 15 years until the date mentioned in the verse in Ezekiel equals 26 years from the first exile, not 25. The Gemara explains that Ravina could have said to you, and according to you, maintains that the 14 years you mentioned in the verse include the year of destruction of the temple. Does it work out well? Now they were also exiled in the 19th year, and it was then that the temple was destroyed. From the 7th year until the 19th year is 12 years, and an additional 14 years until the date mentioned in the verse equals 26 years from the first exile. 25. Rather, what have you to say? That the 25 years are counted separate from the year that they were exiled for the first time. According to my opinion, also I can say that 25 years are separate from the year when they were exiled for the first time. The Gemara objects. In any case, the assertion of the Braita that the destruction of the temple occurred in the 19th year is difficult for Ravina, because there are 11 years from the first exile until the year of the destruction, no counting the year of exile, the year of destruction, and then an additional 15 years, including the year of destruction and the date until the date mentioned in the verse in Ezekiel, which is titled 26 years, not 25. The Gemara explains. Do you hold that there were 3 separate exiles, one in the 7th or 8th year, a second in the 18th year, and a third in the 19th year? In truth, there are only 2 exiles. They were exiled in the 7th year from Nebuchadnezzar's subjugation of Joachim. This calculation is based upon the fact that Nebuchadnezzar rose to power in the 4th year of the reign of Joachim, Jeremiah 25:1, and Joachim reigned for 11 years in 2 Kings 23:36. It is stated that God Joachim in his days Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came over Joachim, became his servant 3 years, and he turned and rebelled against him. In 2 Kings 24:1, the verse does not specify how long Joachim's rebellion lasted. In the book of Daniel, in 1:1-2, it is stated Nebuchadnezzar attacked and defeated Joachim in the 3rd year of Joachim's reign. This could not actually have occurred in the 3rd year from the beginning of Joachim's reign, and Nebuchadnezzar rose to power only during the 4th year of Joachim's reign. The sages therefore explain and say that only in chapter 25 that the verse in Daniel is referring to the 3rd year of Joachim's rebellion, which was the 6th year after he was initially subjugated by Nebuchadnezzar. At that point, Nebuchadnezzar exiled Joachim and installed his son Joachim as king of Judah. Joachim reigned for 11 years. By subtracting the 6 years of subjugation and subsequent rebellion, We write that the conclusion Joachim was initially supplicated in the 5th year of his reign, which was the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, which was the 8th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. They were then exiled the second time when the temple was destroyed in the 18th year from the supplication of Joachim, which was actually in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. Consequently, there were 11 years from the first exile destruction of the temple, not counting the year of exile, and another 14 years until the verse in Ezekiel, which equals a total of 25 years. The Gemara corroborates his interpretation of the Braita, as the Master says, in the first year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar conquered Nineveh. In his second year, sent to Eretz and conquered Joachim. The Gemara continues its discussion of the Braita, which teaches when the temple was destroyed for the first time, that day was the 9th of Av, and it was the conclusion of Shabbat, and it was after the sabbatical year. And likewise, the same happened when the second temple was destroyed. The Gemara asks, can you find a possibility that the second temple was destroyed in the year after the sabbatical year? And about how many years did the second temple stand? It stood for 420 years. 400 years include exactly 8 jubilees, as the jubilee cycle is 50 years. An additional 40 years consist of 2 sabbatical cycles. There are 6 years remaining during which the temple stood, which means that the last year was the 6th year of the sabbatical cycle. The Galatian found the Rashi explanation that the 6th year of the sabbatical cycle was the last of the 420 years the temple stood, and the temple was destroyed for the following year, the sabbatical year. The interpretation is supported by the continuation of the Gemara, which explains that the Braita in according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rashi and Avodah Zarah states that the temple was destroyed in the 420th year, not the 421st year. According to the Gemara statement here, referring to the 6th year of the sabbatical cycle means the destruction of the temple occurred during the 6th year of the sabbatical cycle. Rabbi Levi ben Haviv, point 443, also cites as the opinion of Rashi here. And therefore, when the temple was destroyed the following year of the sabbatical year, not the year after the sabbatical year. The Gemara answers. According to the opinion, it is by stated, it is according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says that the 50th year, the 50th year of the Jubilee cycle is not counted as part of the sabbatical cycle. Rather, the 49th year is the sabbatical year, 50th year is the Jubilee year, and then the following year is the first year of the new sabbatical Jubilee cycles. Halacha is according to the opinion of the rabbis, not the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Nevertheless, the Gaonim had an old tradition that after the destruction of the temple, the 50th year is not counted at all, rather every 7 years is a sabbatical year without interruption. This is a common practice nowadays. I'm saying if it's arrived to Shmita V'Yovel 10:5-7 and seek as of mission there, Mishpat 67:1. Counted here and there, i.e., it is both the Jubilee and the first year of the next sabbatical cycle and the Jubilee cycle, and therefore each Jubilee cycle is only 49 years rather than 50 years. Consequently, when calculating the number of years of the sabbatical and Jubilee cycle until the destruction of the second temple, bring an additional 8 years from the 8 complete Jubilee cycles during which the temple stood. The 8 years and those 6 years that remained according to the previous calculation equals 14 years, which are 2 complete sabbatical cycles, and therefore it is found that the second temple was destroyed in the year following the sabbatical year. The Gemara objects. But if one explains the Braita according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, the first clause of the Braita is problematic, as you did not find that the first time the temple was destroyed was in the year after the sabbatical year. As it is taught in a Braita, the Jewish people counted 17 jubilees. Shiva Asher Yovesh Manu Cholu. The first temple was built 480 years after the exodus from Egypt, see 1 Kings 6:1. When the Jewish people spent 40 years in the desert, this means that it was constructed 440 years after they entered Eretz Yisrael. In light of the recorded length of the reign of all the kings, Rashi on 97a established that the first temple stood for 410 years. This means that the temple was destroyed 850 years after Jewish people entered Israel. Assuming 50 years for each Jubilee cycle, these 850 years comprise exactly 17 Jubilee years. From the time they first entered Israel until they left, when the first temple was destroyed, and you cannot say that they counted from the time they entered, because if you say this, the result is that the temple was destroyed at the beginning of the Jubilee cycle. This apparently means that the first temple was destroyed in the year after the Jubilee year, in the first year of a new Jubilee cycle after it had stood for 410 complete years. This is similar to Rashi's explanation with regard to the second temple, which he maintains stood for 420 complete years, before it was destroyed in the 421st year. Rashi explains that the Gemara here is saying that the first temple was destroyed in the Jubilee itself, which was its 410th year. He maintains that this interpretation is necessary because otherwise, when the Gemara states that one must deduct 14 years of conquest and division of Eretz Yisrael, it would turn out that the temple was destroyed in the 37th year of the Jubilee cycle. This is not the year after the sabbatical year, whereas the Brisa states that the temple was destroyed in the year after the sabbatical year. Nevertheless, this means there was lack of consistency between the form of expression by which the Gemara states the length of time for which the temple stood. When it says the first temple stood for 410 years, this means that it was destroyed in the 410th year. By contrast, when it says that the second temple stood for 420 years, it means the temple was destroyed in the 421st year. Rabbi Levi ben Aviv resolves this difficulty by maintaining that the temple stood 410 complete years, as the destruction began in Iyar and was destroyed in Ab more than 410 complete years later. The sabbatical and Jubilee years are determined by Tishrei, which is 2 months after Ab, and therefore the new Jubilee cycle had not yet begun. Alternatively, the inconsistency is due to the fact that the Gemara prefers to use round numbers for each of the two time periods. Yet another answer is that the Gemara says that the second temple stood for 420 years instead of 421 in order to match the prophecy of Daniel, who foretold that there would be 490 years from the beginning of Babylonian exile, which lasted 70 years. The destruction of the second temple saved at Truma. Number 135 said by Rabbi David ben Aviv, respond to 143. And you do not find that Jubilee was in the 14th year after the city was smitten, Ezekiel 41. Rather, removed from them the 7 years when they conquered the land and the 7 years when they divided the land, and they did not start counting the first Jubilee cycle until after those events. And you then find that the Jubilee was in its 14th year after the city was smitten. They will not explain the difficulty from this Brisa. But if one holds that, according to the opinion of Yehuda, that each Jubilee cycle is 49 years rather than 50 years, you must bring an additional 17 years, one from each of the 17 Jubilee cycles, and add them to these 17 cycles. And it turns out the destruction of the temple was in the third year of the sabbatical cycle. The Gemara answers. Throughout those years from when Sennacherib exiled the 10 tribes until Jeremiah, the Jubilee and sabbatical years can apply only when all the tribes of the Jewish people are dwelling in ancestral territories in accordance with the verse, and you should proclaim liberty throughout the land unto all its inhabitants. Leviticus 25:10. Consequently, the Jubilee did not apply for when the 10 tribes were exiled approximately 100 years before the destruction of the temple. See the Gemara on 32b. Although this exile is ascribed here to Sennacherib, king of Assyria, it actually began with his predecessor Tiglath-Pileser. By contrast, Gemara in Megillah 14b notes that Ezekiel prophesied at the time of the destruction of Judah warned that the Jubilee will no longer apply. Ezekiel 7, which indicates that it did apply at that time. The Gemara therefore concludes that Jeremiah must have returned the 10 tribes, or at least some of the members of the tribes that we saw during the 18th year of the reign of King Josiah. This is derived from the fact that the verses indicate that King Josiah ruled over Bethel. See 2 Kings 23:17, which was located in the kingdom of Israel, not in the kingdom of Judah. Evidently had dominion over both kingdoms. There were precisely 36 years from the 18th year of King Josiah's reign until the destruction of the temple, 14 additional years of Josiah's reign, 11 years altogether for the reign of Arakhin, and an additional 11 years of the reign of Zedekiah. His Majesty said in the Brisa that the temple was destroyed in the year following the sabbatical year. Jeremiah came and returned to the land, and they did not count the Jubilee cycle. And the Jubilee applies only when all 12 tribes are in their ancestral lands. When the exiles returned, a new Jubilee cycle was started, and the temple was destroyed 36 years later, in the year after the sabbatical year. The Gemara suggests a second answer to its question about the statement of the Brisa, which equates the destructions of the first and second temple. And if you wish, they said actually the Brisa is according to the opinion of the rabbis. And when it teaches, and likewise the same happened when the second temple was destroyed, it is not certain that the temple was destroyed in a year after the sabbatical year, because in fact the second temple was destroyed during the sabbatical year. More referring to the other details the Brisa provides with regard to the timing of the destruction, i.e. that it occurred on the night of Ab on Sunday. The Gemara comments, so too it is reasonable to conclude that not all of the details pertaining to the destruction of the first temple also apply to the destruction of the second temple. And if you do not say so, then with regard to the statement that the destruction occurred during the week of the priestly watch, Jerabib was the priestly watch of Yohaviv present at the time of the second temple. But isn't it taught in the Bible that the watch of Yehoiarib did not exist during the second temple era, as it is taught only 4 priestly watches ascended from the Babylonian exile, while the other 20 stayed in Babylonia. And these are the watches who returned, the sons of Jediah, Harim, Pashur, and Immer. The prophets among those who arose and divided those 4 families into 24 watches. They achieved this as follows. They wrote the names of these 24 watches on the pieces of paper, mixed them up, and put them in a receptacle, a kalpi. What's a kalpi? From the Greek kalpis or kalpei, meaning a jar, urn, vase, or pitcher. It also has a narrow meaning of a receptacle used for balance, drawing lots and the like, from which lots were drawn. A representative from the tribe of Jediah came and drew his portion, and the lot of 5 other watches for a total of 6. That's the end of the Omud. I wish you a very good day, afternoon, evening, etc., and all the best. Only peace for all people.